So set 7 is coming out very soon in Japan, and with it comes a load of upgrades, especially for some fan favorite decks like Bavs, for example. So yeah, pretty hype. At least every nation got one new deck, or at least an upgrade. So that's good to see it, right? So let's kind of jump in. The description will have all the links to all the deck logs, Japan deck logs, but I'm giving you a link, so there's no way you can screw it up. So first off, we have the Bavs upgrade. We're just running all the new ride lines. The main thing is the new Bavs is like pretty crazy. It counts as the old Vase Rug. You can put a card from your hand into Soul, and then you can equip a arms card from a armor equip from the drop, and then you can Soul Blast 2 instead to just like wipe your opponent's front field. So no higher Soul Blast anymore, just Soul Blast 2. You also get a crit, and if you don't retire anything, you still get to draw a card. So 3+ there. Then the last, there's so many effects, right? So when this card gets equipped as well, you can energy charge 1, and then from your drop, you can call a grade 1 or lower card to the Regard Circle. And if you call a Vilord, instead you can like just choose on your trick runes and you can overdress it instead. So that's pretty good. So basically what we have here is we have your Vilords and your trick moons. You always want that. It's gonna just make everything big, and it works very well. Then you have a new card. This is it Yugma Shadow? But basically, this guy restands. So that gives Vase Rug more than 3 attacks, which is way more than she had before. It also has a great first effect, so when it comes onto the Regard Circle from your hand, you can Energy Blast 3, you can discard an Arms card from your hand, and then draw 2. That's pretty good, right? And then if your opponent's grade 3, you get plus 5k. So, power, get to hand filter, get rid of your Arms cards that don't really add value in your hand. But then the second effect is just a restand. It's basically when your Vase Rug attacks. At the end of the battle, your Vase Rug attacks. You can counterblast 1 if your opponent's grade 3, and then just stand it. So CB will be basically put into this to restand to make the multiple attacks, and then your front row is just gonna get a bunch of power just from like the Vilords and your Vase Rug, and then your new equips as well. So your new sword, the new sword is pretty good. It gives the front row 5k. It does require CB1 to attach, but there's always ways to cheat it out, like the Vase Rug skill. I think it's Asakai skill. And then the second effect does give your Vanguard a drive, which is really nice, but then it goes to the drop zone at the end of turn. But then you can just cheat it out by equipping it with Vase Rug's effect. So that's pretty good. There is also like the new shield. The new shield is actually pretty insane. When it gets equipped, you draw a card. It does require CB1 as well, but again, you can cheat it out. And then it also has the old like 10k defensive power when your Bavs gets attacked, but now you can Soul Blast 1 and you get 20k instead. So that's pretty good. Like you can spend a soul just to get the extra power. You won't use it all the time, but it is like a nice option you can have. And then what you can do is you can comment with something like the old arms. So like you can have like this one just if you want to retire stuff, but then at the end of the turn you can like get back a sword. Or you can use one of this, use the old halberd, or as an axe. But yeah, this one at the end of the turn, it has guard restrict, but then at the end of the turn, you just equip the shield and you get the draw. So that's like a nice little combo there. It's pretty good. Like it does require like CB, but again, you can cheat it out, and you have like Trick Moon to like counter charge. And you're basically using it as like a toolbox. And then lastly, I'd included 1 copy of Defensing Roar, just because Defensing Roar is insane. I wanted to put more, just because like it's so good, but it combos with like, you know, your OT, your triggers, and any defensive card that you need for etc. It's just an overall really good card, so that's why I'm like kind of putting in. But run 1 Sanctitude, PGs, the rest, the triggers are up to you really, and that's pretty much the deck. All right, that's pretty much the deck. Next we have the new Astroea. This is the Stellar version. Overall, this Stellar version of Astroea is like much more streamlined and less like gimmicky. And in a way, it means it's also like less, I guess, scalable into the late game. You have like, you reach a ceiling, and that's pretty much it. The good thing about her is that her Persona Ride, so you're basically gonna Persona Ride every single turn. So what they gave like Stella is that now, during the main phase, at the beginning of the main phase, if you haven't ridden this turn, you can discard a card, and then from your bind zone, you can ride you ride basically her again, a copy of her from your bind zone, and then activate Persona Ride. So that's pretty good. So you're gonna just need to find a way to put like Astreas into bind zones, and then every turn do that, and then every turn you always go to Persona Ride. This is really easy with the second effect, where if you attack your opponent's Vanguard, you can CB1 and Soul Blast 3, and then you basically bind every single critical or card name with Astroea in there to the bind zone, and that's just how you set it up, right? And depending on how many crits and Astreas that are in the bind zone, you get the following effects. So you have like 1, it's just a combined total, by the way. So if you have 1, you can retire one of your opponent's cards, and your front row gets plus 5k. And the second one, which is 3 or more, is she gets a crit and a drive, which is also good. And then if you have 5 or more, you stand a reguard. So all of it's pretty easy to attain. You won't really be able to hit it, I guess, on your first ride. So it's basically like a turn 4 onwards. So you basically peak when you hit that persona ride part. You probably do need to somehow soul charge a Astroea and then like, or discard it and put it in and then kind of bind it through this effect. Otherwise you'll be forced to like persona ride. But after that you're basically swimming. But yeah, this is pretty much the ceiling of the deck, this part. So in a way you kind of have to push a bit more on the early game, which is hopefully what we try to do. We have a new grade 3, by the way. This one is pretty cool. It's got a nice hand filter when it's put on the reguard circle. When it's placed on the reguard circle, if your Vanguard's Astroea, grade 3 or higher, you can discard. You can put 1 card from your hand to soul, and then draw a card, and it gets plus 5k. So it's a nice beater. The second effect is just just extra defensive power. If you have, there's like 1 or more Astreas, or if you have 1 or more Astreas or crits, like just a combined total of them in the bind zone, you get 10k shield. And then if you have 3 or more, it also gets intercept. So already can guard, but then if it's on the board, you can intercept with it. And then you have also another new one here. This one is kind of, I don't really see the value in this card. This is from DZ-BT07. But you're running 2 of it. This has like it can get a crit when it stands, but it's kind of like a weird timing. It also puts like cards into the soul, so it can be okay. But really, the old dragon, like this dragon kind of just does very similar things, but it gets like extra shield. So I just ran like more of this. Ideally, what you do is you don't really have an energy outlet here as well, so that's why I'm running the energy cycler. But what you do is like you'll commit your Filias onto the board, and then you can just like bash early, and then later on, if your opponent fills up the board, you can play one of your orders to like cash them in, and then once you have like Game of the Underworld here, you can just start giving your bigger grade 2s like boost. So that's how you kind of like push later on. But then in the early game, you just commit early, and then like try and deal as much damage before you spike with your Unica. Well, not Unica, Astroea. So the rest of the ride line is just like the old ride line, and that's basically it. That's basically. I think the new card's okay. Streamlines the deck a bit more, but nothing too amazing. The other new deck is the High Beast deck. This one is the Aoi, and then it's just dog breeders. It's like the Keta dog breeders. So all our effects are that all our back row High Beast units get plus 5k even during your opponent's turn. You can Soul Blast 2 as well. Search a deck for a High Beast and then call it, which is, you can call your Sergions, which is pretty good. You can CB1 as well, and then it gives your center back row grade 1 or less High Beast the following effects for this turn. So it can attack. You can attack that turn, and then after it attacks, you stand it, and then it can't attack. So basically, you can just use it for a boost. And then if your opponent is grade 3 or higher, that attack does drive check as well. So that's pretty good. You put like a dog behind your Vanguard. That attacks first. You drive check with it if your opponent's grade 3. Then it stands, and then you boost your AoE. It's for like even better numbers. So this deck is just basically cards that like search dogs and dogs. There's like, but not everything is a dog actually. This is a High Beast too. So the Carbuncle's a High Beast, and it's actually pretty good because even if you play it down, you can look at top 5 and call important pieces. So it's like not the worst. The whole idea of this deck is pretty much standard Paladin. You just build a board really early, and then you just like bash as soon as possible. And then you also have the orders here to be able to just, you know, make things hit even bigger. You're gonna make a full board very quickly anyway. That's the ideal strategy. So it's gonna like replace itself. You're gonna just draw 1, and then the good thing is like you run so many, you should be able to like just naturally draw into these. These also will proc your Sergions when your opponent gets shifty. They start playing a full board, so this will just like forcibly proc them, and that's all nice. There's other nice dogs here as well. This one is one that just gets like a decent amount of power, but also adds energy charge or soul charge. It'll just like fill your resources depending on what you need. And then we also have like the guard dog, which is actually a guard dog. He's like a 10k guard, which can be pretty good. But if it's in the center back row, it's also like a guard restrict. So you kind of just pick the dog that you want. If you want draw, you have Sergion. If you want like power, you have the green one. And then if you need shield, or you need like guard restrict of this, so kind of works out pretty well. And then you have other cards like is it Sation? This one gives you a high beast intercept and can intercept from the back. That's pretty good. It increases your bulk, which is very, very nice. This is also your energy blast outlet, but you won't 100% use it because the energy blast only gives you crit. So when it gets boosted by one of your high beasts, and then you have like your Vanguard is the name thing, it gets 5k. So that's the free part. But then if your opponent's grade 3, yeah, energy blast 3, get a crit. But you're only really going to use that if you like 4 or less. Late game, you're not really going to use that, so your energy blast can be used like elsewhere. And then we also have Mishiro. This one is like counter blast 1 top 7. Grab like one of the high beasts and then just call it, and then if you didn't grab, you can counter charge 1. So it's like just like a nice refund. But then she also gets big, which gets boosted by a high beast. You soul charge 1, and then if your opponent's grade 3, and then you have 2 or more back row high beasts, you can get plus 10k. So just a nice speeder. So like your formation's pretty simple. You have Ioi as your Vanguard. You have these in like you have these two people in your front, and then whatever high beast you want in the back. So the Siren deck is actually also pretty decent. It's like one of the fully new ride lines. This deck revolves around these orders, which are just, I think they're called tidings. Are these tidings? Yeah, these special orders that get effects when they're bound, and then the grade 3 like binds them to do things. So the first effect is just during your turn, if in your bind zone you have like 1 type or higher like order, you get plus 5k. But then you have 2 or more, you get plus, your whole front row gets plus 5k. So it's this nice power buff. The second one is you can just discard a card from your hand and then put one of those orders into your order zone. And then the third effect is how you bind these. It's just when you attack a Vanguard, you CB1 and then choose an order card, order zone. Choose those specific orders from your order zone and bind them. And then if your opponent's grade 3, you can energy blast 3 instead and bind 2. So these orders are actually pretty good. The first one is like grade 1, so you immediately want to play it, and your right line just straight up searches for them, so that's pretty good too. They do have to be played with a Soul Blast 1 though, so there's where your Soul Blast is going to. When this card is placed in the order zone, you can look at top 7 and grab one of these orders to hand, or you can like call one of those Siren cards to the field that is like grade less than your Vanguard. And then the second effect is just when this card is like bound, you can just stand one of your rear guards. So that's how you make the multi-attacks. And then the grade 3 one is actually pretty cool. This one searches out for a tier dragon, and then the second effect lets you restand your Vanguard, but the second attack is just like a drive equal to 1, unless you can buff it another way, which you don't. This second effect does require your opponent to be grade 3 or higher as well to get the restand. So it can be a bit. That's why we're running 1 less, basically. But the thing is here, the tier dragon search is actually pretty good because it lets you run a variety of tier dragons. The main tier dragon you have is this one. This one is pretty much the same as the this is just the archetype one. So when this card is placed from hand or deck, you can, if your Vanguard is the Siren, you get plus 5k, and then you can choose to counterblast or energy blast 3 to draw a card. So this is actually pretty important because if you had to counterblast, then the deck is very counterblast heavy, but because you have the choice, you can pick when you want to actually do it. And the second effect is a once per turn when this card attacks, this gets plus 5k, and at the end of the turn, you retire it. That's fine because you've gotten the plus from this, and it's all good. So you don't even have to give the plus 5k, so you don't have to retire, right? But that's like just one of your tier dragons. We running a bunch, so the other one is Inlet Pulse, just because if you want to be able to draw but not like want to spend any resource, this is how you can draw, and it also builds soul. The other one here is a new one that is more archetype as well. This is on the drop. If you play one of those specific orders, you can, and you don't have one of these, a copy of this on the board, you can CB1, just call it, so just a nice body. And then when this card is placed on the rearguard circle, you can put one of your orders, the specific orders from your bind zone, and then put to the drop, and this gets 10k. So it's a nice beater, and this is basically what you want to restand. I'm only running 1 at the moment because technically you can just search it out. So that's why I only run 1. And then we also have Tideline. This will just give you a bit more power for the final turn. But yeah, all of these are just 1, just to kind of do the whatchamacallit, just do the searches, the toolboxing. Your ride line does search for like the specific archetypes. That's why we're running a bunch of the archetype grade 1s as well, and the grade 2s. But also we're running a price trident, 2 price trident, because I feel like maybe there's like counter charge issues. This kind of solves that. You can make 5 attacks pretty much. So this, as long as you get like 1 price trident, I think all your resources are solved, all your soul blast issues are solved, all your counter charge issues are solved. So it's just like a nice card to have. Unfortunately, it's not searchable. The last card we have is this grade 1 that just searches for the orders from your deck or drop and just adds it to hand, and just also gets some power, so that's pretty good. The brand gate deck we have this time is Vase Rug. This one is actually pretty interesting. It rolls out this Moon Gate card that is kind of like, it's like kind of like a prison, except it's not. It's just like a set order that is in the deck that you can search it out from your ride line. It's just like amazing. But yeah, this one has an effect where you Energy Blast 3 and rest it, and then you look at top 7 for like a Mistitch card, and then that is less than your Vanguard, and then you can just call it out. But then if your Vanguard is Vase Rug, grade 3 or higher, you can, instead of searching for 1, you can search for 3. So that's like pretty good deck fitting, right? And then you'll call 1 and then put 2 in the order zone. That'll come into handy later on. So this is like a nice effect, but when you're on Vase Rug, you get to Soul Blast 2 and then just activate that order without using the effect, without using the cost. Sorry, you get the effect without the cost. So that means you can use the order twice a turn. So you can use it once. It doesn't rest because that's part of the cost. So you thin your deck, and then you can then activate its effect again, and then just rest it, Energy Blast 3, and use it, and that's all fine and dandy. So that's a lot of. Hopefully, you get a lot of those Mistitch cards out of your deck, and life is good. Because then you have the other effects here. So when this card attacks, you can CB1, and then from your order zone, you can call up to 2 Mistitch cards and put them in the same column, and then then all your front row units get plus 5k. So this is like a 4 attack deck, but with like hopefully ultra compression. But that's not all. When you put your Mistitch card in the Guardian Circle, you put a card from your drop zone, a Mistitch card from your drop zone back to the bottom of your deck, and then that gets 5k shield. So basically, like, the Mistitch cards are just these 2 cards. One of them is just this dog, and this dog is your CB or Energy Blast outlet. It's just when it attacks, if you have the gate, the Moon Gate, it's the Moon Gate. It's plus 5k, but you can see you want Energy Blast 3 to draw a card. And then the first effect is that when it's put on the rear guard circle, if your Vanguard is Vase Rug, grade 3 or higher, you can attack multiple things. So you can pick one of your opponent's other front row rear guards, and then just you attack both. You attack both their Vanguard and their rear guard. So pretty good. It's just like nice like removal in a way, and just like seals off intercepts. But then there is another one. This is the bird grade 1. You can put up to 16 of these in your deck, and then if your Vanguard is the grade 3 Vase Rug, it gains boost. So that's why you don't need that many grade 1s. You can just have them, just like have it there. It's all good. Then you have the 2. I'm running 2 of these. This really doesn't look like a Vase Rugish card, you know. But this is like your main booster. So if your Vanguard's Vase Rug, it's 5k, and then when your Vase Rug attacks, and you're boosting it, it gets plus 2, and you can Soul Blast 1 Mistitch, Soul Blast 1, and then put one of the Mistitch cards from your drop to the bottom of your deck to Energy Charge 3. So big energy charges, and then like you can just probably use those energy charges like later for other things, like Energy Blast 7 might be pretty good. And then I'm just running some Bubble Means for extra counter charge, because I don't really know too much about how much counter charging you'll do. You also run this new order. I'm running this new order for Vase Rug itself. It's CB1 to play, and then you pick one of your Vase Rugs, and it gets the following red text, which is all your Mistitch rear guards get plus 5k. Then the Mistitch cards that are placed via effect get plus 5k as well. So, I mean, just like extra power for your finishing turn. It's the finishing turn of this deck isn't really that high, but you're just going through a lot of compression, which seems to be pretty nice. The one thing that I did add is the Blitz order. This one's actually pretty good, because you basically call 2 different grade 2 or higher cards from your drop, and then what you do is like you'll call these like Mistitch ones, so hopefully you call it one of each, right? But then they'll just get like plus 5k from the Vase Rug, right? So that's like that's like a 30k shield, which seems pretty nice. I'm just trying that out, trying it out and see how it goes. That's kind of like the idea for the deck. You can press very quickly. You can try and be aggressive and then just kind of go from there. Like hit triggers, hit them often, hit them hard. Yeah. And then finally we're on to the coolest looking archetype from the set. It's Arisara? Is it Arisara? Yeah, so I've got Arisara. This one is pretty cool because of Mega Romania. It has lock. It just has lock, right? So it has like 2 of these orders. These are 2 specific orders. They can only be played via Arisara's effect from the drop zone. So you can't accelerate these. One of them is that you draw a card and call a Shadow Army token, which is actually pretty good. And the second one is that you can pick one of your opponent's cards and lock them, as long as your opponent is on grade 3 or higher. So, like, lock's pretty good, but with these restrictions, you really only get, like, 1 lock. And to be fair, a lot of the strong decks nowadays have the ability to play around your lock, which is very, very annoying. Which is why I kind of feel like you still have to run a lot of Shout and Shadow and not fully rely on Mega Romania. So here's the deal, right? Is that your ride line searches for your orders. So what you do is, depending on the matchup, you'll just search for the one that you want. If you're playing into janky deck that can't play around your locks, you can just search for Mega Romania. But if you're going first, you probably do want to get some Shout and Shadows. And if you're against a deck that can fully play around your deck, then you just fully lock in on Shout and Shadow and just get those Shadow Army tokens going, and life is good. The deck is pretty... I think you have to be aggressive with this deck because the grade 3 Arisara herself is kind of slow. So her first effect is that if during a turn, if your order zone has 2 or more of those orders, the sound system orders, right, she gets +1 crit. Now, there's no way to accelerate this or accelerate those orders into your order zone. So this is basically a turn 4 effect. In turn 4, Vanguard getting a crit, which is also reliant on like your rear guard swinging first to be able to, because that's how she multi-attacks, is kind of redundant in some way. So let's not worry too much about this. Her second effect is an Act Energy Blast 2. You pick a card from you pick one of those orders from your hand or drop zone, and then you just put them into the order zone. And then if you put one from your hand, you draw a card. So that's how you put these orders in. You actually just cannot play them normally because there's a restriction on them. So you have to play it via this effect. And then the third effect is that when she attacks, you can CB1. And then for each of those sound system cards in the order zone, you basically summon a Shadow Army token. And then if you have 2 or more, for every 2 of the sound systems there in your order zone, your front row gets +5k. So again, this is very slow because like I said, there's not really a way to accelerate this. On turn 4 is when you're making 5 attacks. On your turn 3, you're only making 4 attacks. But then there's cards that are attacking the Shadow Army tokens. They're 15k base, and then with this boost, they'll get like +5k, but they're not exactly like too massive as well. Right? They're kind of still small. With the Persona Ride, they'll be 30k. So I do think this deck is a bit too slow. The other cards we're running are just, we have Yoika's, because Yoika's is good. We have new Yoika, which is actually not bad. She gets like a 5k when you have like one of those sound systems in the order zone. But then at the end of the battle, when she boosts, if you have one of those sound systems, you can put into Soul and then bounce a card. So you can clean your board, but also build Soul is the key thing. I think it's fine just to slap them early and bash, because then we're also running the new Rainbow Cyclers. This one gives you the Persona Shield. It does require a Soul Blast though, but that's where all the extra souls kind of like work out. But this is kind of the way to like kind of slow down the game to the point when you start getting so many Shadow Army tokens, your power scaling becomes better, that you can actually win. Because if you're able to lock your opponent, then, you know, the game will just naturally slow down. But if you can't, then you'll probably be committing this faster. You're probably just using these shields to live, and they're just trying to win the game like that. And then we have some of the main Arisara support. The only one I'm running is the Devilish Flanger Rufuru. She has extra shield, has extra power, that's all you want. But then when she is bounced back to your hands or placed over, if your Vanguard's Arisara, you can CB1 and just draw a card. So just that's how you get advantage, but it works very well with the Yoikas, very well with the other bounce. And that's kind of the other support for this deck. I don't think is really that good. I've seen decks try to cut down on the number of these orders that you can play, but I feel like if you're only running like 2-2, for example, I just don't think it's enough. If you're aiming to, like, you know, play the deck in how it's intended, I think you're probably hitting like maybe third turn rides, which is like pretty crazy to think about. But like the deck is kind of built to kind of get the game slower, so that's how it is. Also, just running one of the Caliban Regulus piece, you can draw 2, you can countercharge 1. It's just nice. Lastly, I have is the Safir Geara deck. I don't really think there's too much to be said here. I think a lot of people have said that Safir Geara himself is not very good. You're stuck with him. All right, once you ride Safir Geara, you can't get into the other Griffigearas, even though it counts as a Griffigeara name. The cool thing about this deck, I guess, is that you can Energy Blast 3 to call something and also make one of those Dragon Tree markers. But then the last act effect, you just get like a lot of energy charge. So you put from your hand or your drop zone, you can get one of those Dragon Tree / Mask of Hydragons and then bind them. And then for each Dragon Tree marker, you get energy charge 1, and then this unit gets plus 5k. And then for if you have 5 or more Dragon Tree markers, it gets an extra drive. So that's kind of like cool. You like energy charge a lot and then spend them for not much. The Dragon Tree cards you do run are the one in the new 2. Of course, this is Dragon Empire, so you get the Esmeraldas. So that's how you make the multi-attacks. And the Shenris are cool, because I guess your Shenri, you can commit them early and then cash them in by playing some Mask of Hydragons. You can search, try and get more cards. And then we also have the Blitz Order to just make Dragon Tree markers and accelerate them out. So that's kind of the main cards of the deck, but Safir Geara, meme status, right? Meme status. So that's kind of like a high-level view of all the decks that I built. All of these are very experimental. All of them are preliminary. It's up to you to kind of maximize them, but hopefully this format might be really cool, right? Some of these decks seem pretty nice, especially Vase Saga. Vase Saga seems pretty cool, so yeah, can't wait to see how they turn out. Anyway, that is it for me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments and other ways to improve the decks. I'm sure you'll have a bigger brain than me and can figure out all the cool stuff, and I'll see you all later, alright? Bye.